Good afternoon, guys. So, according to the poll I ran today, you guys would like to know more about my own journey. And okay, so here we go. So, every Friday, I'm just going to take a few minutes and kind of give you just share with you what I'm experiencing, what I'm going through, what I'm discovering personally, because you'll see that that tends to influence the themes I choose for the community. It influences how I work with clients, with myself, and it also has a huge influence over the material, the trainings I create, both for Codependency Confidence, for Get Closure Now, for Brilliance View, and it's part of that journey, part of that experience we have together in our exit from codependency, from our trauma, really discovering what life is outside of that world. So you'll know it's this because I changed the background. I'm a big fan of the green screen. So, but this week has been an enlightening week in a way I didn't want, in a way I didn't ask for, but it all started on Wednesday. So I got a message from my sister about my father, and my father, you need some background on. He is a paranoid schizophrenic who is a covert narcissist, and he's basically addicted to women. Without a woman, he doesn't exist. So he also has comorbidity with some codependency there. And in this adventure, I got this message from my sister who has been trying to help take care of him because he's developed dementia and his paranoia from schizophrenia is pretty strong. And she let us know that he had proposed to a new woman. Okay. My stepmother died back in December. Many of you will know that, many of you won't, just because the group has grown so much since then. And that was a huge amount of relief for me in that because good 29 years ago, my mother passed away from brain cancer when I was just before I turned 11. And when my dad met my stepmother Karen 6 months later and proposed to her, he then forced her into our lives. And he started creating these interesting sets of conflicting rules. One of the rules I was given, because I was a very vocal kid, I didn't like Karen. I didn't like what was going on. I let them know that. And it was an attribute that drove my mother crazy, but she still supported it. She's like, well, you're a strong minded kid. That's just, gonna have to deal with it. But now that my protector is dead, my dad could do whatever he needed. And what he needed was me to get out of the way. And what he did is he had him and Karen tag teamed me into codependency, into submission by threatening me, by accusing me of things like there's this concept in their religious belief system that they're they were destined for each other. And my mother condoned their marriage, and so they used this concept against me. And so it allowed my dad to force this woman into my life to control and manipulate me to her bidding. And I was given a rule where I couldn't speak about my mom. And to this day, guys, to this day, 30 years, my dad has mentioned my mother, Barbara, twice. And both of those times happened in the 6 months after her death. That's it. Okay. And so my experience in seeing that my father got re-engaged brought all this enormous amount of pain and panic back. It's like, oh God, now I have to conform to this person. I also don't get to address the issues I have with my father about how he handled my mother, her death and post-death and things like that. And I thought maybe we'd have an opportunity to do that. No, we're not going to have an opportunity to do that. But it really brought this huge amount of enlightenment into my life about what it means to go through a replacement, not just us being replaced, but people, places, or things that matter to us being replaced by the narcissist, and that we have to live with it. And so in this process, I took some time to use the nurture process, the closure technique, get in there and really start nurturing that 11-year-old boy who had to suffer with all of his grief in that deep, deep isolation that my father created for us because he needed a woman, and that woman couldn't tolerate it, couldn't handle the mention of my mother, couldn't handle us grieving her, couldn't handle the competition she experienced in her mind from a dead woman, really. And there's a lot of freedom that started coming out of it, but it caused a lot of physical pain, which triggered a migraine. Migraines for me are a signal of overwhelm. The nervous system is done. And so I have to take a break. Usually I have very, very vivid dreams in that. And one of the curious things that happened in that when I slept Wednesday night, Thursday morning is I began to realize how much I had carried of her, of my mother, my stepmother, of my dad, and how much I didn't want to carry about this new woman. And it was really funny because part of me caught on, and I'm like, ooh, we don't have to carry this anymore. And the 11-year-old's like, I get to tell her off. And I'm like, well, yeah, you can tell her off. We want to be mature about it, but yeah, we can establish really clear boundaries with this person. We don't have to live with her. She isn't our mother. She's not, we're not her son, which is a big deal, guys. In the replacement, Karen became my mother. I became Karen's son. I wasn't Barbara's son, and Barbara wasn't my mother. That's how replacement impacts relationships when we're dealing with a narcissistic parent, for instance. They want to get rid of the other person, erase them, so they have this clean slate to slot someone else into that space and use them as their supply. And for children of this experience, especially if we've lost a parent, or you've been alienated, or the spouse, the father or the mother has alienated the other parent, this is really traumatic to the attachment bond we have to that parent. Puts us in the middle, creates this enormous amount of internal conflict about loyalty and love and trying to survive this nightmare, right? And so we got in there and I started working with that, and it's funny because he's like, I'm just going to tell her off and set up some rules. I'm not your son, you're not my mother. We can have a cordial relationship. You respect my boundaries and choices and don't expect anything from me. And I was like, cool, we could do that. And it was interesting as I gave myself permission to have that, I softened up towards her, and I got really clear with what I want to do with my father. And if he wants to force this woman into my life like he did with Karen, I'm going to put him in his place because that's a natural advocacy of boundary. It's like, suck it. Deal with it. I'm an adult. You're an adult. This is an important thing for us in our recovery, guys, to realize we're not children. I mean, nobody in this group is a child. We're all adults. We need to occupy the space of being the adult. And largely, this is a big deal on awareness, because in like today's post with gratitude, I'm very grateful for the awareness that's really rushing into my life right now, because it's like, ooh, I'm aware of what's mine and what isn't. I'm aware of my brilliance. I'm aware of my options and my choices. I'm aware of my purpose, my energy, my wholeness. We don't have to play this game anymore. It's not necessary. We don't have to live through it. It's time that we get to exit this. That's the thing with codependency, is we get conditioned into these weird cycles of tolerance. I gotta tolerate their bullshit. I gotta tolerate their choices. Like we're children. And it's not our fault, guys. It makes sense because most of us are children of narcissistic parents. Addicts, alcoholics, emotional neglectors, things like that. And so our response is formed in the child mind. It's going to stay in the child mind until we really capture our adult point of view and start going, ooh, I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want here. That will bring up the unresolved attachment pain, the traumas. It'll bring up the pain of our unmet needs, which is fundamentally what trauma is. It's the unmet needs, guys. We meet those needs, the trauma goes away, we can move on with our lives. That's what I've been practicing in this awareness of, like, I can trust my awareness. I can trust my take on the situation. I'm not crazy. You're not crazy. The feelings I've been experiencing, at first I had this like hand, just get rid of the feelings, suppress them, comply, be what they need them to be, because that's what I had to do as a kid. I just watched it. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I understand why I'm doing that. And my feelings are legitimate. Okay. Now I get in contact with that legitimacy. And it's like, whoa, I can be angry. I can say no to this. I can walk out of this. I don't have to participate in this bullshit anymore. Yeah. Yeah, we don't have to participate in this bullshit anymore. None of this is ours to fix or even live with. It's just like, meh. So that's what's been coming alive in me is the amount of anger and hurt that's very legitimate about how I was treated by my father regarding Karen, my stepmother, and my biological mother, Barbara. And it's actually very liberating. There's this huge amount of space in this movement that's very much contained in love. It's like, yeah, we're legitimate and they get to live with it because we're no longer pleasing them. I'm no longer out there to make them happy. I'm there to just honor me, honor where I came from. If they want a healthy relationship, they're going to have to step up to the plate. Because again, I'm the adult in the relationship, but they're the children because they act like children. So we can be that bold. We can be that contained because fundamentally, they haven't earned the right to be in our lives. They have no privilege, no entitlement to us. We're sacred. Our being is sacred. Our feelings are valid. What we've experienced, again, like what I was referencing now, these feelings that come up, they were actually really valid. I wasn't crazy or wrong for feeling the way I did about what was going on and what was happening to me, because what was going on and happening to me was fundamentally wrong. See, it's not that my father got remarried that was wrong, because that's not an unreasonable thing for someone to get remarried. Not a bad thing. It's not what, it's how. So a lot of times where we get confused is, well, they wanted this thing, that thing is a good thing, yes, but how you do it is what matters most. Not just what you want, but it's how you execute it. How you execute your boundaries. How do you ask for what you want? How do you say no? These things, the hows matter because they're the definition, they're the difference between toxic abusive approaches or healthy nurturing approaches. How my father handled both these situations is toxic because he has no regard for how it impacts anybody. The only regard he has is for himself. He's not even regarding the poor woman, man. That this lady just doesn't even know what's coming for her. I'm sad for her because she's gonna have fun with that. Oh man. But it's important for us, and it was important for me, especially this week, to realize the legitimacy again of what I felt. My reactions to these kinds of choices from people aren't mine. Yeah, they're mine, but they're not wrong, is what I mean. Is they're not illegitimate, they aren't shameful. And they're worthy of being understood, just like yours are. So you're in an experience with someone, you're having all this anxiety or all this fear, there's a legitimate reason why. It may not relate to that particular situation at the moment, but your past makes it relevant. It's like, oh, I can see why you would feel that way, even though the actual context situation isn't the old one. So it's important for us guys not to shame ourselves. It's important to legitimize what we experience, what we feel. Me legitimizing these feelings within me, helping get really in contact with a big boundary within me. That boundary is not to absorb other people's feelings, their results, their expectations, their desires, their happiness. That's been a challenge for me. I am still exploring the relationship between responsibility for tools and systems I create for you guys, and then accountability for people's results, right? And there is a separation there because the tools if you guys are in a nurture guinea pig program, you realize I take it pretty seriously about the results. And if you're in heal or codependent confidence, or you're in get closure now, I monitor your progress, just see how you're doing. And so that's how I take my accountability, responsibility in those tools very seriously. But ultimately, it is you that does the work, so it's you that earns the result, right? And so I let that go a lot. And this whole experience this week was a big reminder of not to carry other people's stuff. Because I'm a fixer. I mean, it's partly why I'm good at what I do, but it's also part of the burden I carry. So, and I'm learning to let that burden go, no more of the burden, right? So that's what I've experienced this week. This is what's been coming up for me in my awareness. The goodness of my heart, the goodness of my desire to love and respect, but my also the desire to have boundaries, the desire to validate and verify and legitimize my own experience. And so I'm grateful this week that my father got engaged. So I could see these feelings in me and become a little more whole, a little more free, a little more connected back to me. Help that 11-year-old boy find some peace and rest in this. And also to discover more of my own boundary, my own brilliance, my life. So that's what's been going on for me, guys. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate your support and permission to share a bit. So I'll do this again next week and what I discover as we do our experiments together, because we're all on this together. I'm not just some weird ass guy making up stuff and like, hey, do it this way. It's more like I do the experiments with you. I'm testing things out with you because think of it this way. We're all on the same path. I'm just a little farther down the road, a little farther up on the mountain. That's all. Some of you are getting past me there, which is kind of cool. I like that. So thank you again for being here for me, for allowing me to share a bit in my adventure. In about an hour, I'll be talking about how we heal trauma, what trauma is, because Get Closure Now is open. So we're going to do some of those trainings. But again, I appreciate you guys. You guys have a great weekend. We'll do this again next Friday. See you guys. Bye-bye.